The previous basket is under review.
Welcome in to another episode of Weekend Under Review. That is Matthew Winick. I'm Brian Rauf. We're going to be going through the best non-power conferences in today's episode. Last week we did traditional one-bid leagues to start our season preview season, leading up to the start of exhibition games. Next 5 weeks will be the 5 power conferences. Today we have the newly revamped Pac-12, A10, American, WCC, and the revamped / watered down Mountain West version of that. We will talk about those 5 conferences in today's episode as we preview those. But first, we have some news to get to. We'll talk about some foreign tours, but not before I remind you to subscribe to Basket Under Review if you have not already. Doing so gets you access to all of the premium content on the website, basketunderreview.com, and access to the Discord, which is where Shirley Donovan posts all of his scoops, insights, and intel. It's very important this time of year, given the transfer portal kind of being open for some of these 5-5 guys. You want the scoop on where those guys are going. That's on the Discord with Shirley Donovan. So make sure you subscribe to Basket Under Review today. All right, Winick, let's talk about some of those 5-5 transfers that have committed. The 2 headliners that are landed at new schools since we last spoke. Donovan Dent, who is not going to Gonzaga, is going to LSU, play for Will Wade, and Mark Mitchell, who's committed to Kentucky. Let's start with the Mark Mitchell piece because it's the most recent and I think the most impactful on the season as a whole, because we've spent much of this offseason not laughing at Mark Pope in Kentucky, but they struck out a lot of their top targets early. Landon Momcilovic, now get Mark Mitchell. This roster is a team that has top 10 level talent now. So what do you make of the commitment of Mark Mitchell to Kentucky?
It was necessary, I think, for Kentucky to reach a point where their fans are expecting them to be. Not that the roster was horrible beforehand. I'd say they were borderline top 25 when they added him, but they were not going to be a top 10 caliber team if they did not land Mark Mitchell. And obviously, after a lot of back and forth and figuring out how they were actually going to get him eligible and active, for now at least, unless his particular injunction gets stayed, he will be a Kentucky Wildcat. He's so important because he is someone who can create rim touches on his own, going downhill, good handle, really good frame, gets to the free throw line. And he's become an excellent passer when going downhill. You think about Milan Momcilovic and all he did next to Joshua Jefferson, who was a very similar player, really good passer, someone who got to the rim on his own, which is tough to do at 6'9" with athleticism. That is going to be a spectacular pairing. And you think about Malachi Moreno, who's also a really good passer, strong defender, great frame. That 3-man duo is one of the best 3-man pairings in the country, and probably outside of Florida, the best 3-man front court in the country.
Yeah, I think the addition of him at the 4 spot in particular is going to be pretty important because, one, it keeps Momcilovic from having to play the 4, which he has the height to do, does not have the, I think, physicality to do on the defensive end, particularly as teams go to more of these 2 big lineups. And Kentucky has the option to go to the 2 big lineup, but both Marino and Big Frank, as I call him, can't always pronounce his last name.
Kepnang.
Thank you. Yes. Writing it and then having to say it are always 2 different things because you have to say it phonetically in your head as you're typing it. I don't think work well together on the court at the same time. We might see him in stretches, particularly against teams like Florida that play 2 traditional bigs and they have that option. But having Mark Mitchell in there gives you a true swing piece that, again, he can play defense on the 4s. He's athletic enough to defend on the perimeter, obviously high-level defender. He still hangs out around the paint offensively and gives you the versatility on that end you need as well from that spot. I think it's great from there. Again, top 10 now in talent, I think Kentucky is overall. I have some questions if it's a top 10 fit. Kentucky's still going to be good this year. Doesn't answer any more questions about the shooting. Depth is better, obviously, with him, but is not where it has been for Pope the last several years where he's rolling out 9, 10, 11 guys consistently on a nightly basis. I don't know if I trust the bench that deep. You're still relying on some players in unproven roles or taking a step up. Alex Wilkins, I think I like him as a player, but going from SoCon to the SEC is a concern. Him and Zoom Diallo have had some turnover inconsistencies throughout their career. Momcilovic is an awesome shooter, the best in the country. I don't know if there's another like consistent high-level shooter on that team, which given the way Kentucky plays and Mark Pope plays is very important. But the talent is certainly there. Like you feel so much better about Kentucky now than we did the end of April, end of May, even. Like this is a big addition, allows Kentucky to, I think, compete legitimately for an SEC title. We'll see about, Final Four championship and all that, but they're going to be right there at the forefront of the SEC race with Florida.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a race for second, given Florida.
That's true.
But they have as good a chance as any to finish second.
Yeah, well, we're not talking about LSU in that conversation, and I don't think Donovan Dent's arrival changes that, but I do think it obviously lends itself to a little bit more credibility to what Will Wade is doing there in Baton Rouge his first season, and the fact that they can be NCAA tournament level good. There's still a majority of that roster that has to be figured out and filled out, but adding somebody of Dent's ability, of his experience, that's a huge, huge thing for LSU and for Will Wade and for a system that tends to be one guy ball dominant. Well, here's your one guy who dominates the ball in an efficient way, does everything you want to do from a traditional point guard as well. Like I think that fit in that system should play really well.
I'll say this. If Donovan Dent and Sky Clark both remain eligible 5-5, if Saliu Niang and Bryce Tezard, who both played in the starters in the Euro League last year, like the number 2 league in the entire world, are both eligible, and then Mo Diabate at the 4. If those 5 are all eligible, that is the third best starting lineup in the SEC behind Florida and Texas, in my opinion. Because obviously Niang and Tezard are new to college basketball. They're EuroLeague starters. They've been looked at by NBA teams. At least Niang, I think, has played Summer League. Maybe Tezard as well. And then Donovan Dent and Sky Clark, trust me, UCLA's had issues and last year, but the issues were not Donovan Dent and Sky Clark. They were both spectacular, especially Dent down the stretch of last year. That's a top 3 starting lineup in the SEC. Now, I'm curious about their depth. Will they add more people? Are they going to be eligible? Any of them? If they are, I mean, they're basically a mercenaries team. They're being hired to play 1 year of college basketball, make some money, and then move on. But you cannot deny the talent.
Would you put them ahead of Kentucky?
Yes.
The starting lineup?
I'd put them, if everyone's eligible, I would put them exactly even with Kentucky.
Okay. So we're looking at what could be a really fun SEC title race, in large part because of these additions. And
large SEC second place title race.
So would you put Texas in that tier with Florida? I know we're kind of getting down the rabbit hole here. We'll get to the SEC.
It's Florida, and it's again, we'll talk in a couple weeks, but it's Florida, and then there's an awesome second. Florida dominated this league last year, and they have the same players.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. If you think things are nuts in college basketball, college football starts in less than 2 weeks. Well, I guess week 0 is in 6 days, 5 days, depending on when you're listening to this. Week 1 starts in less than 2 weeks. The Cleveland Browns just waived tight end Daquan Wright so he could sign his deal with LSU. Let me repeat that. The NFL's Cleveland Browns released a tight end so he could sign his deal to play tight end for Lane Kiffin at LSU.
That was nice of them.
If you think things are messed up in college basketball right now, that's not happening. People aren't getting cut by the Hornets so they can go play for Duke.
No, but the other thing might happen. That might get flipped. People, if Duke has a player, if Donovan Dent is the best player in college basketball in December, he is draft eligible. He is a free agent in the NBA right now.
Yeah.
If he is the best player in college basketball, he could go sign with the Pelicans.
That is the flip side of this that I had not thought about, and I do not know. So I'm just ripping this off the top of my head. Let's say Donovan Dent is awesome, and LSU makes the Sweet 16, Elite 8. He's SEC Player of the Year. Does somebody sign him for the stretch run of the season and the playoffs in the NBA?
Somebody could sign him in January. There's no contracts in college basketball. He could leave. Oh, he doesn't graduate.
No enforceable contracts.
No enforceable contracts. He could leave whenever he wanted to.
That would be wild. Although he was not pursuing an NBA career, which
this might change things.
That's another rabbit hole. But anyway, big additions, exciting additions, ones that will improve both Kentucky and LSU, ones that will improve the SEC, ones that will improve college basketball as a whole for next season. So very fun there. Now is the time, though, when a lot of that improvement comes from playing on the court. Teams are going on foreign tours. We're getting our first look at what some of these teams may look like next year, unless they add somebody in this 5-5 deal. Still plenty of time for that to happen still. But there are a couple teams that are on foreign tours right now, some results to discuss or at least kind of get into. Where did you want to start with this, Winick?
Yeah, so Arizona and Michigan both played Team Lithuania this week. Gus Marciulionis from St. Mary's played in those games, as well as Zulis Tubelis from Arizona played in at least one of those games. Some takeaways, I watched a little bit of both. Ivan Karchenkov, Superstar Leap is coming, and I know that you're a fan.
I was pulling up his stats for what he was doing on this foreign tour because it's absurd what he's doing.
He might be better than Mo Rivas as a whole. He might be better than Mo Rivas. Michigan, a little bit of work in progress. Of course, they're younger. They're not used to the international game. Mo Cham got hurt really early. They played on Sunday. JP Estrella and Elliot Cadeau and Trey McKinney all fouled out, which isn't good. Brendan McCoy looked excellent defensively, which is something Mike Boynton had been hyping up. But if we're talking about those two teams right now, Arizona certainly looks ahead of Michigan. And I guess that's to be expected given the turmoil Michigan went through versus Arizona. And of course, Arizona didn't have RJ Godfrey. Assuming he's eligible, he'll be really helpful. I mean, they were starting Bryce James, and they still looked good. So they're going to be really good next.
Yeah, Bryce James was showing some bloodline in there with a couple highlights. A couple highlights were pretty nice. But yeah, Ivan Karchenkov averaged 26.3 points and shot 58.5% from the field in 3 games against foreign competition, but
against half of the Lithuanian men's national team.
He was on my breakout team.
He might be a top 10 player in the sport.
If that happens for this Arizona team and Caleb Holtz is good as people think he is, back-to-back Final Fours would not be out of the question.
Yeah, I mean, I would say they're they're easily a top 10 team. If Karchenkov takes the Superstar Leaf, could be top 5.
Yeah. A lot of fun there. Any concerns about Michigan? Because as you mentioned, they did lose to teams that Arizona beat, or lost to a team, the Lithuanian team that Arizona beat. Concerns there, still just nothing to worry about. It's foreign tours, early, new coach, new system. Or is this?
I mean, they're just not deep. They're not deep. Like, their starters are good. Quinn Costello looked really solid in the game, but they haven't added any 5-5 guys. And I guess they added Kenny Nolan, who I'm a Columbia grad. He's not going to be a big fixture in the rotation. Kenny Nolan, the former Columbia point guard. So I guess that is a 5-5 add. They're just not deep, right? And they're not that athletic. Like, JP Estrella is a solid player. He's not a terrific athlete. And Elliot Cadeau is small. And Trey McKinney is big, but he's not unbelievably explosive. Like, they're not going to be like last year's team.
Yeah.
They're just not.
No, I don't think so either. Those two have been the most recent headliners with their play, but is there anybody else from, let's say, the past couple of weeks or past month that has stood out to you for one reason or another?
Speaking of Michigan, one of their assistants, Justin Joyner, went to Oregon State. They've been playing Michigan-esque. There was one game against a Canadian team that South Carolina only beat by 13. I just want to point that out. They went 37 of 42 inside the arc. That sounds like Michigan to me. They are huge. They have Dennis Evans, who was a 5-star at Louisville, and they have Xavier Staten, who was a borderline 5-star at BYU. They have a lot of good guards: Daniel Freitag, Chris Johnson, I'm forgetting his first name, Josiah Lake, who was at Oregon State with Wayne Tinkle. They're going to be really good. And we might not get to them in these breakdowns. Of course, they're in the new Pac-12. They're going to be really good. And then, they beat this team. I forget which Canadian team. I should know because I'm Canadian. They beat them by 30 points more than Purdue did. And of course, Purdue's a work in progress, but they did not look great in their games.
Purdue did not. Again, I think some of that's to be expected given just the amount of turnover that's there, the amount of new roles and bigger roles people are stepping into. They got to figure out who they are. And that's a perfect time to go on a foreign tour right? Is when you're at that point that Purdue is at right now. I'm on record with South Carolina. I don't think they're good. They spent like $17 million on this roster reportedly, which I don't know if they're getting the return on that. We'll see. We will see. But Oregon State, as you mentioned, has played well. It's a good transition into the best teams from these leagues. Again, we're previewing the Pac-12, A-10, American, Mountain West, WCC in today's episode. I don't know where you put Oregon State in the pecking order in the Pac-12. I don't think they are at the top. Certainly, that's Gonzaga. But who are some of the best teams at this level that Oregon State may be trying to reach or get up to?
I'm going to give you my top 5 teams. And of course, we're talking about 5 leagues, the Pac-12, the A-10, the WCC, the Mountain West, and the American. Give my top 5 and then an asterisk 6th because of a 5-5 eligibility. Number 1 is Gonzaga. It's not close. Yeah. Gonzaga's first. I don't care who's running point guard for them. They have really good players that we're going to talk about later. Number 2 and number 3 are right next to each other, hand in hand, VCU and St. Louis. They should be neck and neck at the top of the A-10. One of them will win the A-10. They were both awesome last year. They bring back nearly everybody. They're going to be amazing this year. Number 4 and number 5 are both in the old Mountain West, Grand Canyon and New Mexico. Grand Canyon is loaded with talent. Like, they're better than South Carolina, and they did not spend as much money as South Carolina.
Thank you.
And New Mexico with Eric Olin, who might take a job like South Carolina next year. They have no big man, but they are stacked at every other position. And then the asterisk 6th is Santa Clara. If Elijah Mahi, their star from last year, gets gets cleared 5-5, they will be right in the mix of those 5 teams. Any disagreements?
No disagreements at all. Like those were my list. Gonzaga is self-explanatory. I think, and this kind of plays into the bowl prediction I'll give at the end, but I think VCU and St. Louis are both top 20 caliber teams. We'll see if they are able to get up there. But from a talent perspective, that's there. There are questions about, how good is Blake Harper at VCU? Because that raises the ceiling. What does St. Louis do at the 5? Because that's a question. Not that there aren't answers we think are there, but we need to see what happens there. I think the potential is there for both of them to be top 20 caliber teams. And so you're talking about a race in the A-10 between them and who knows what happens with like a Dayton. Who knows what happens with the other programs in the A-10 that are always consistently good. I know Mason might be up there as well. George Washington fancies themselves being up there, making a leap this year too. That'll be a fun race to watch between the two of them. And the rivalry, because wasn't there a fight between the two of them last year? They played once at St. Louis, and there was a fight at the end of the game because VCU
got pushed into the stand at the end, on an intentional foul or something.
Yeah, that along with how good they're going to be, both, and that's going to be a fun dynamic to watch, I think, all season long.
But like you think about the reinforcements that these teams got, like they both got multiple high 4 stars, either in the portal or as freshmen. St. Louis added 2 Power 5 players, along McKaylee and Elijah Strong. VCU added Blake Harper, their own, Power Conference player of their own. They both bring back a ton. They both have excellent coaches. Like, they're both stacked. It's pretty insane what they were able to do. And it's not like they're just like no proof of concept. Both of them were in the NCAA tournament last year, and they bring back nearly everybody. Of course, they both kind of lose their best player with Terrence Hill and Robbie Avila. But other than that, they will step into those roles.
And there are teams that you don't see this a lot at the non-power level. Were able to retain most of their best guys. The transfers they brought in are big names, but they should supplement what's already there, right? It is kind of more of that power conference style of where we're not overhauling the roster every single year, unless you're a first-year coach, or that's just kind of your strategy where you fall in the cycle. They have continuity along with influx of talent. Like, you look for portal additions that are going to really pop. That's typically something you look for. Both these teams have it. Like, I think the floor is really high and the ceilings are obviously much higher.
Yeah, and I mean, you think about the trend of the 5 teams and even Santa Clara, the 6th that I mentioned, they're all extremely, lot of retention, a lot of continuity on those rosters. Gonzaga, of course, with Braden Huff and Davis Fogel, VCU and St. Louis that we just mentioned, Grand Canyon, probably less so, but they do bring back Jaden Henley with the 5-5. It was their best player last year. And then New Mexico was able to bring back the freshman duo of Uriah Tenet and Jake Hall which is huge for their retention and edit for Eric Olin. Santa Clara brings back most of their non-Allen Graves rotation. So that's the theme. And then you think about a team like Oregon State or even Utah State, who does bring back Mason Falsleb, and that's about it with the new coach. Like, those are teams that are right there, but they're a little bit more unproven because they're largely new rosters. But if you told me that Utah State or Oregon State or a team of that type was a top 5 team amongst this group, I would absolutely believe it.
It'll be fun to see, or interesting to see Ben Jacobson somewhere other than Northern Iowa. He's a very good coach. Just it's been like 20 years. And we haven't seen him outside of Northern Iowa. Excited to see what that looks like with Utah State. You mentioned the talent. Those top teams are a general consensus. Before we talk about teams that we may be lower on, is there anybody who you think could get into the same tier as those top 5 or challenge if things break the right way for them?
The answer, there's 2 answers. They're both in the WCC. I mean, at first, we haven't talked about the American at all. They're not as good as the other leagues. I hate to say it. Wichita State could be really, really good, especially if their best player last year, Kenyon Giles, remains eligible in the 5-5. That one's actually a bit of a question right now. But in the WCC, St. Mary's and Pepperdine are 2 very interesting teams. Pepperdine with Griff Aldrich, formerly at Longwood, was the lead assistant under Ryan Odom at Virginia. They're unbelievably talented for Pepperdine team, but they're completely brand new. And then St. Mary's, kind of the opposite. Like, Mickey McConnell is a former Randy Bennett star. They retained Josh Dent, one of the best point guards in the country, and a lot of interesting pieces from their previous teams. But new coach. Don't know how that's going to go. But, it could just be same old St. Mary's, and they're right there with Gonzaga like they often are.
I mean, that's one of the biggest questions, is what St. Mary's looks like without Randy Bennett there. I'm also very interested to see, speaking of the American, what Charlotte looks like under Wes Miller, because he brought 4 guys from Cincinnati with him, Jizzle James being the headliner, and maybe he's still at Cincinnati if Jizzle James doesn't miss the first half of last season, which there were extracurricular things happening there, but a lot of roster turnover, a lot of talent, like high-end talent for the American, certainly. Now, we know Wes Miller's track record at Cincinnati was that he could not beat the better teams on the schedule, the teams that would have pushed Cincinnati into the tier that maybe their talent suggested they should have been able to beat. But he also established a new floor there. He was really great at UNC Greensboro before that, where he had the same kind of struggles against higher end teams, but they would win 25 games every year. It's been a long time since Charlotte has been at that level. It's really been since the late 2000s when they were making the move from Conference USA to the A10 that they were that level good. I think they can get back there. You mentioned the American, being pretty wide open. Memphis is down. That's a good transition to the worst teams. Memphis is down. I don't know what they're going to do this year. But I think the door is open for a team like Charlotte. Again, if the questions are able to be answered in a positive way, because again, the talent is there, but all of these guys are somewhere else for a reason, including Wes Miller. But if everything comes together, and that's a Charlotte team that can win the league.
Yeah, they're the most athletic team in the league. I mean, Wes Miller has always had the most athletic teams in his leagues. That was enough to win in the SoCon, and it was definitely not enough to win in the Big 12. The jury's out on the American. I don't know if it's a league you can just win by being more athletic than everyone else and just playing defense, because the offense is still kind of going to be gross. But yeah, they're so athletic. There's a chance they just overwhelm athletically.
Defensively, they'll be good. You wonder, what does this step down from the Big 12 to the American? Does Jizzle James have the breakout that we were teased for 2 years and become the answer to the offensive questions? Because there are probably not at this point, but the step down, there are so many things with Charlotte that I find interesting. We'll see. But yeah, let's switch to the, not the worst teams. That sounds mean. Teams that we think may be underachieving, let's say, for one reason or another. Memphis was the first name that I brought up just because I don't see it on the roster. But where else do you want to go with this? Is there any team or teams you want to highlight here?
There's 3 that I'll talk about. One, they're the worst team, but they're going to be better, and that's Air Force. Because Air Force, outside of one guy who played 4 games, I've never seen anything like it. brings back every single rotation player from a team that went 3-29 last year and 0-21 in Mountain West games. They finished the season losing 80-45. They must be unbelievably disciplined Air Force men to have all remained at school after an 0-21 Mountain West season. But you know what? They were largely freshmen.
Yep.
They were 359th in Division I experience. Couldn't have been less experienced. And they have a new coach in Joe Crispin, who is going to play a very different style than they played under Joe Scott. Maybe they don't totally suck, but it's the exact same rotation on a team that went 0-21. Really quickly, Denver joined the WCC from the Summit.
They did.
And they have a Summit League roster. And the rest of the WCC is very good. And it's just going to be really tough for them to win in that league, especially in year one. Carson Johnson, their point guard, is great. They are not a WCC roster. It's going to be a little tough. And then in terms of just pure underachieving, fool me once, shame on me. Drew Valentine is not fooling me again at Loyola Chicago. It's a new roster. I don't care. I just don't think they're going to live up to expectations.
I think they will be significantly better than they were last year.
It's impossible to be worse.
I don't expect them to be in the conference title race. But I don't expect them to be near the bottom of the conference standings either.
I mean, last year they were just as talented. Last year, it was
not great last year. It was obvious pretty early on that they were in for a rough year. Yeah. Hopefully not. Those teams because there's a lot of movement in this level with conference alignment and things. You mentioned that Denver kind of saw a Summit League roster. Texas State still largely has a Sun Belt roster going into the Pac-12. I don't know if they're going to make a lot of noise in that league. Oregon State would have been one of the teams that, you figure coming in, you're going to try and knock off, but Oregon State looks pretty good. Washington State, I don't know if they'll do well with all of these newcomers coming in. So that Denver, who did I say? Texas State.
UC Davis and UTEP in the Mountain West is also going to be a little.
There's a lot of new matchups that'll take some getting used to at this level, and some reminders of, oh yeah, that team's here. Got it. Yeah, which makes for interesting conference races. I do hate though that the Pac-12 didn't took the best Mountain West teams by and large, but not all of them. So we have two essentially half leagues.
Yeah, both of them kind of got worse at the same time, but it's not because of who they kept. Who they kept is still good. It's just the teams that they backfilled with.
Right.
The Pac-12 having Texas State and having Fresno State, it makes it harder. That's clearly a football move.
Yeah.
It hurts the basketball product because the bottom of those leagues is worse.
Yeah. You mentioned UC Davis and UTEP coming to the Mountain West. Hawaii as well, making the move to the Mountain West. But again, losing Boise, who's been an NCAA tournament team, San Diego State, their dominance, Colorado State, been an NCAA tournament team, Utah State, NCAA tournament team, with Hawaii, UC Davis, and UTEP. You're relying on Grand Canyon, New Mexico, and UNLV by and large to carry the conference, and Nevada. But you're relying on those four to carry the conference, and that was the mid-tier of your league before.
The good news is it's easy to know who left because every team with the word state in the WCC and the Mountain West outside of San Jose, every single other state, Oregon State, Washington State, Boise State, Texas State, Fresno State, only states. So at least it's easy to know who left.
All the states and Gonzaga.
But that's easy to remember because they're going to win the league, so it's fine.
Yes, Gonzaga will win the league in part because they have probably the three best players in that league. I don't think that's a stretch by and large, but at this level, let's highlight some of those top players. Again, Gonzaga is going to have a vast majority of them, but who do we want to touch on here?
Yeah, I'll save Masamba Drop for the next section, but number 1 and number 2 on my list were Braden Huff and Davis Fogel. And of course, with Fogel, there's a little bit of projection considering He was, he came on late at Gonzaga, but he's going to be a superstar. Braden Huff, there is no projection. He is a top 10 player in the sport offensively. He's unbelievably dominant on insanely high usage. He finishes everything around the rim, and he's a really good passer. But a couple other guys I wanted to highlight, Mason Falslev, staying at Utah State is a miracle for Ben Jacobson in year one. Like, what a building block. Lazar Djokovic at VCU is someone that kind of slipped under the radar for me because I did not like him coming over from Charleston. Phil Martelli Jr. turned him into a superstar, and he's probably the best player in the A10. Jake Ensminger at Santa Clara is someone that no one talks about because he doesn't score. But the passing, the defense, and the on-off splits at Santa Clara for an at-large team were unbelievable. So if you don't know Jake Ensminger at Santa Clara, learn the name. And then two more, Josh Dent, point guard at St. Mary's, maybe a top 5 passer in the sport, and Jake Hall, New Mexico, somehow kept him, even though Kentucky was knocking on the door. Maybe the best shooter in this general group of leagues.
Yeah, I want to talk about Jake Hall because he was phenomenal as a freshman. A real bright spot for New Mexico and somebody to build around. Able to bring him back. He's going to be really, really good there in the Mountain West. You mentioned Djokovic for VCU. I think Nick Lewis is primed for a breakout and step forward as well. He was really highly rated coming out of high school as a freshman. They did not take things easy on him. They threw him out there and he handled a good bit of the load. Again, was not a super focal point. Numbers won't drop off the page at you. 8.7 points, 4.5 boards, 1.6 assists. But he's got high level ability. He's got power conference ability, power conference athleticism, all of that stuff. Would not surprise me to see him take another step forward for this VCU team. But again, VCU's got a lot of talent everywhere. So the numbers may not be insane, but he's going to have another really good season, I think.
Yeah, and you think about VCU and St. Louis, like Djokovic was probably the top guy ready for a leap on VCU, Nick Lewis in that conversation. I don't know who that is for St. Louis. Trey Green could take more of an on-ball leap with Robbie Avila gone. Ishan Sharma just being a 45% three-point shooter, maybe with more volume, he's their best player. I also, sleeper, would say it's not impossible that it's Elijah Strong, who was very high usage at South Carolina and Boston College, obviously on pretty disgusting offenses. But with his frame, he moves well. He's going to be able to get to the rim on his own with a lot less defensive attention on him with all the shooting alongside him. It wouldn't surprise me if he ends up leading St. Louis in score.
I trust Josh Schertz to figure it out, quite frankly. They're going to be really good again. There's going to be guys who take massive steps forward. Trey Green, is a good shout. That's somebody who has kind of shown some flashes for several years now, multiple stops. I think that might be my place I would start, but St. Louis again, I think is going to have 4 or 5 double-digit scorers. A whole bunch of people averaging between 14 and 9. Balanced attack. What about newcomers? Because again, age of transfer portal, this level sees a lot of transition for the most part every single year. Who are some newcomers that could dominate or could be some of those top players at this level?
2 clear ones, 2 genuine starters on awesome, 2 genuinely awesome starters. Only one of them is on an awesome team. Masamba Ja at Arizona State. We talked about him on the show before. One of my favorite transfers in the country. And then just very recently, because of the 5-5, Dallin Hall going to Utah State's crazy.
Yeah.
That guy was starting on Virginia, who was a 4 seed?
Yep.
He was starting on a 4 seed, and he was an unbelievable on-off net positive, one of the best passers in the sport, has become a consistent three-point shooter and finisher at the rim. Dallin Hall and Mason Falslev is a ridiculous combination. And then just a quick shout, I know we were kind of low on Memphis, but one of Brendan Cummings and Jaden Reed is just going to be really, really, really good for Penny Hardaway, who always finds talented on-ball guards. Jaden Reed was, the leading passer at Northwestern, and Brandon Cummings led Pitt in usage and played. They were okay when he was active, and then he got hurt, and then they fell off a cliff. So one of them will be awesome. I don't know which. Probably not both. Mm-hmm. It's Penny Hardaway in Memphis, but they're way too talented to not get a shout here.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We talked about Blake Harper at VCU, sticking with VCU. Think this may be more his level. Obviously was great at Howard. Did not have the impact that Creighton was hoping he would have last year. I think this is more his level, and he can do some big things there. Same mindset with Dylan Darling, where he was too good for the level at Idaho State. Had some obviously big moments at St. John's and was their closer earned the nickname Bells because of his clutch time performances. This is, I think, more his level for the all-around game and being able to impact a game during any point in the 40 minutes at Grand Canyon there. In the American, I want to highlight Justin Fernandez, who's at UAB. Fifth-year guy coming over from Delaware, shot over 40% from three last year. When Andy Kennedy does not have Yaxel Lindenborg, he typically has one guard that drives the offense and everything centers around by and large, which Andy Kennedy, interim UAB AD. Interesting to see how that goes with the basketball side of things as well. But Fernandez seems like he's going to be that guy who is the focal point of UAB's offense. And given his efficiencies, given his maturity, his experience, Delaware was not great last year. Fernandez was awesome, and they could not take him off of the court. Averaged about 37, 38 minutes per game last year. He won't have that load at UAB, I don't think. But his efficiency, production, he's going to play 30, 35 minutes a game. He's somebody who, if UAB is going to be near the top of the American, he's going to be the reason why.
Yeah, UAB had a down year last year. They are much more of an Andy Kennedy roster this year. They have, a top 5 JUCO incoming class. They have a big man, Matt Mbole from JUCO, who's going to be awesome. Justin Fernandez is a great shout. He was really solid in a featured role at Delaware. And then some interesting guard swings. This is an Andy Kennedy roster. They will be better than last year.
They will be better. Again, wide open American too. Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what's going to happen?
It is Wichita's to lose. Like Wichita is the best team in the American right now, with or without Kenyon Giles. Mm-hmm. But outside of them, you're right. Completely wide open.
Can we talk about AJ Storr at UNLV as well?
No. You know what? No. I don't want to talk about AJ Storr.
The one thing I will say, same kind of thought process, but to another stratosphere as Jizzle James, where AJ Storr has been a proven power conference high-level scorer. Efficiency has been inconsistent, but he proved that at Ole Miss, proved that at Wisconsin mostly, that he was one of the better scorers in the country. Now you're taking him down a level to UNLV in the Mountain West. Again, where the level of competition got considerably worse where the Mountain West was the last several years. I do wonder what he can do from an offensive output and scoring standpoint at this level and what that might mean for UNLV.
Can I give you a stat?
Please.
Over the course of Ole Miss's season last year, they were 22.7 points per 100 possessions, better with AJ Storr off the floor. 99% of college basketball players had a better mark. They were a really good team when he was on the bench and an awful team when he was on the court. Can I give you one more AJ Storr stat?
Please.
His best year, the Wisconsin season, he had a 0.6 assist turnover ratio. That was in the 8th percentile of all guards in the country. 92% of all guards had a better assist turnover. That was his good year. He's never shot over 48% from 2. He shot over 35% from 3 once. He takes a lot of shots. He scored a lot of points for a good Wisconsin team once. He's not good. He's not a good player. He's not.
I'm not advocating for him saying he's going to win Player of the Year, anything like that. He's
not even the best player in UNLV.
He's worth a mention at this level. I'm not arguing. I'm not here campaigning for AJ Storr, 9 schools in 9 years, going back to the high school guy. I'm not doing that. I'm just wondering if he gives you 20 points a game at UNLV with hopefully more efficiency because you're at a lower level, what that means for UNLV. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm asking.
If AJ Storr is scoring 20 points per game, it means that UNLV sucks. If UNLV is good, which they can be, they have a lot of talent on that roster, it's because AJ Storr doesn't have to score 20 points per
game. AJ Storr doesn't know he doesn't have to score 20 points a game. AJ Storr.
That's why AJ Storr is not.
Be interesting to see how that's used there, but we had to bring him up. That's a notable name that 2 years ago, well, really 2.5, because the back half of it, you can go back to that Wisconsin year, and you could find the point where he knew he was entering the portal. Just go back to his game log. You can find the point where he knew he was entering the portal. But he was the biggest name available. He was the biggest name available.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know. It's incredible how quickly things change.
Yeah.
We mentioned the transition between a lot of the teams at this level. they're kind of in flux where there's all the conference realignment, obviously the Pac-12 being at the forefront of a lot of that. There's, again, the middle ground. We talked last week about the traditional one bid leagues. We're talking the next 5 weeks about the power leagues. The teams in these 5 leagues find themselves in flux. The WCC lost its best member. There's a lot of curiosity about what things look like with these 5 leagues and your non-powers that are traditional multi-bid leagues. How do you look at these 5 and this level of college basketball right now?
It helps the top. Like this realignment is going to help the top of leagues. It'll blend into my bold prediction in a bit, but it just hurts the regular season of these conferences. Like obviously non-con you can schedule whatever you want, and the NCAA tournament being expanded means we're going to get a lot of these teams in. But like last year, use the Mountain West for example. San Jose State and Air Force went 3-37, and nearly every other team went 500 or better. And with these teams, like going from the Summit or from the Sun Belt or from the Big West into these leagues, with the money that the top of these leagues are already getting with, the Grand Canyons of the world and the Gonzagas of the world, it just means we're going to get a lot of 17-3 teams and a lot of 3-17 teams. And there's going to be 15 to 20 point gambling spreads for conference games, which you don't want to see. You don't want a February game between a top 25 team and a 300 KenPom team that is going to be an absolute blowout. I mean, Gonzaga has been doing it in the WCC for years, and good on the WCC for raising its floor. Like even the Pepperdine's and the Portlands and the Loyola Marimounts of the world are going to be solid. But as you keep on bringing these teams to backfill when the top teams are moving up a level, it just waters down conference basketball. And you think about the best years of the Mountain West, how unbelievable those February games between like 5 or 6 different teams competing for a potential at-large spot. That's not going to happen anymore. There's not 5 teams anymore that are competing for that spot. It's 2 or 3.
I have 3 general thoughts because the Pac-12 is going to be interesting because over half that league, probably 5 of the 9 teams have real at-large expectations, not hopes, but expectations. How the committee views that league will be interesting because those battles you talk about that made up a lot of the Mountain West January and Februarys that were so much fun are going to be in this league, but they're going to be between, spots 3, 4, 5, and maybe even 6 in this league in the conference standings. How does that get viewed publicly? How does that get viewed by the committee when it's a 9-team league and the bottom is not very good compared to what the Mountain West used to be, where, UNLV was putting up pretty solid numbers every January, but would always finish like 9th in the league, right? How they handle similar teams without the depth of conference is going to be interesting. I think we're going to see a lot of inflated records because of what you mentioned earlier about the backfilling with worse teams. There will be a lot of inflated win-loss records. The metrics are not going to look great, but the win-losses will, which I think will create more games with stakes when we get to February. We're not going to have, I think, a higher level of play in these leagues. Pac-12 might be the lone exception because you're going to get some really good games between like Gonzaga, San Diego State, Gonzaga, Boise, some of the new matchups there, Oregon State and Colorado State could be a lot of fun there as well. But the other leagues, you're not going to get the consistent high-level games. Even the 1 versus 2 in your league is not going to be as high level as it has been the last couple of years. But you are going to get the team that's on a 15-game winning streak against a team that's on a 12-game win streak to see who's going to be first in the league. And those stakes will make some of those more fun, and they'll feel like bigger events, but those events will be fewer and more far between than the consistently quality basketball that we had become accustomed to at this level the last couple of years.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, I think that's the byproduct of it. Let's get some bold predictions. We've teased ours at various times throughout this episode. I'll let you lead off here. Give me your bold prediction for Pac-12, A-10 American, Mountain West, and WCC.
All right. 2 when they lead into each other.
Okay.
The first one, I'm going to go predict the order of KenPom finish for these leagues. I'm going to go Pac-12 first, A-10 second, WCC third, Mountain West fourth, and then American fifth.
Okay.
I don't know if you have any major disagreements there. If you want.
I'm going to put the WCC last.
Below both the American
and the Mountain West. But I think there's a clear gap between like Pac-12 and A10 and then gap. And those bottom three will look more like the traditional one bid leagues than anything else.
That makes sense. I could totally get there because those three are going to be a little bit closer. And then second, bouncing off of that, other than the American, I think every other league gets 2 teams in. At least 2.
Do you want to go a step further and say who those are?
Sure, let's try it. In the Pac-12, obviously Gonzaga. Yep. I'm going to say Gonzaga, Utah State, and a third. Either San Diego State, who we actually didn't talk about at all, which is kind of a testament to the roster. It's not that good.
Yeah.
One of San Diego State, Colorado State, or Oregon State. In the A10, it'll be VCU and St. Louis. That one's a little bit easier. The WCC, I'm going to say Santa Clara and St. Mary's. And the Mountain West, I'm going to say Grand Canyon and New Mexico.
Okay. I could get behind all those. I think we see a 3-bid Pac-12, maybe a 4-bid Pac-12. Again, depends on how San Diego State looks. It is a shame we didn't talk about the Aztecs at all on this episode before minute 46. They're not going like they missed our worst team section because they are not going to be bad. I think that program has earned enough respect to where we know that's not going to be the case. The floor is going to be there. I don't know where the ceiling sits though. The ceiling is not going to be very high.
It's not a very talented team.
No. My bold prediction is that we get, I want to say 2, but that's going a little too far. We get one non-Gonzaga team from this level in the second weekend. Kind of sticks with my VCU and St. Louis being top 15, top 20 good. I think we get one team from this level that is playing the second weekend. Maybe go a step further. One team from this level, and I will one non-Gonzaga team. I'll go with either VCU or St. Louis, depending on who wins the A10. Wears white for the entire first weekend, like hosts a regional, basically. Not a region, but host the pod.
Yeah,
host the pod. Host the pod.
That has to mean what? That you're 4?
That has to mean that you are. No, because you can be. Yeah, you got to be top 4. I think one of them gets top 4 seed, top 16.
So VCU or St. Louis is a 4 seed, essentially is what you're saying.
The A10 champs, of course.
I can totally get that.
Yeah.
I think that I really like St. Louis, but I think that it's probably VCU because they are definitely Power 5 athletes, for sure.
I think so too. Again, if St. Louis solves the issue at the 5, or answers the question, it's not an issue. It's not something to solve, but answers the question at the 5, and you do get somebody that steps up, maybe becomes a go-to scorer, could very easily be St. Louis. That's a really, really good team too. They're probably wearing white either way. The first game of the NCAA tournament, getting a top 8 seed. I'm trying not to like go overboard with my VCU hype, but this VCU team's really damn good, man. They look really damn good on paper.
Yeah. A lot of talent. And they're deep too.
Where would they finish in like let's say the Big East? Where would they finish in the Big East?
It's a good question. I could actually tell you because I've started my rankings.
Yes.
VCU would finish 4th in my rankings behind UConn, St. John's, and Marquette.
Where would St. Louis?
They are basically neck and neck with VCU. So also 4th. There was no
okay. All right. I like that.
Good teams.
Very good.
That means they're better than Providence. It means they're better than Villanova. It means they're better than Creighton, at least in my opinion, and Xavier.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll lock it in VCU. You can clip this. We'll go back to it in March. VCU is going to show up in the top 4 seed lines. We'll lock it in with
Very
VCU.
possible.
Lock it in, barring injury, of course. VCU, top 4 seed. All right. We will be back next week for our start of our 5 power conferences, getting up to the start of exhibition season. Which one are we starting with? What's the order we're going with? We're going reverse Ken Palm finish from last year.
Reverse Ken Palm finish, which means we get the Big East.
Big East first. We'll go Big East, and then let's see if I can do this off the top of my head. Big East, then ACC, and then Big 10,
12.
Big 12, Big 10, SEC. All right. Big East next week, followed by the ACC, followed by the Big 12, followed by the Big 10, followed by the SEC. We got it. We got it locked in. Make sure you join us for all of those. We are getting closer and closer to the start of the season, closer and closer to roster clarity as well, which would be very, very good to have when we get into September. We shall see. For Matthew Winick, I'm Brian Rauf. Talk to you guys next week.